Hello everyone, and welcome to the Refractive Recovery and COVID-19 Live Roundtable. This virtual event has been organised by the Ophthalmologist. Our main sponsor today is Alcon, and supporting sponsors are Zeiss and Zima. My name is Alexandra Jones. I'm the editor of the Ophthalmologist, and I'm joined today by an esteemed international panel of refractive surgeons, including Arthur Cummings, Medical Director of the Wellington Eye Clinic in Dublin in Ireland, who will be chairing today's session, Shiraz Daya, founder and chairman of Centre for Sight in London in the UK, Maria Cott, Chief Medical Officer, Vision Innovation Partners, founding partner and medical director of Chesapeake Eye Care and Laser Centre and Chesapeake Eye Surgery Centre, and medical director at TLC Laser Eye Centre in Annapolis, USA, and Denise Visco, ocular surgeon, medical director and founder of Eyes of York in Pennsylvania, USA. We have got one more panelist who we are hoping will be joining us very soon. He is based in New Zealand, so it's very, very early in the morning for him. As a reminder, our panelists will be happy to answer any questions you might have at the end of the discussion. You can submit a question at any time by clicking the Ask a Question button on your screen. Without further ado, let's get started. Arthur, over to you.
Thank you, Alexandra, and welcome to everyone, and welcome to the panelists. We're looking forward to Ben joining us too. We've all been through a very interesting past few months, and what we plan to do with today's session is maybe just share our experience between the 5 centers and the 5 speakers. We're in different parts of the world, we're in different stages of COVID, and we're in different stages of going back to practice. So what we're hoping to do is learn from one another and also hopefully have something that really resonates with you, and we can see how we can get through this and make refractive surgery even stronger on the other side. So I think what I want to do before we start is maybe just ask Maria, Denise and Shiraz just to briefly tell us what their practice is like, when, what the COVID profile looks like at the moment where they practice, and then also when they went back to practice. Maria, we may start with you if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Arthur, for allowing me to participate. I feel very privileged to do this. This has been a very interesting time for all of us and has really made us become much more innovative in what we're trying to do. We closed down March 16th. I am CMO of Vision Innovation Partners. We have 23 offices, 13 practices, and about 70 ophthalmologists and optometrists. We closed down as a group, as I said, March 16th. We reopened about May 18th or so, had a gradual reopening over the last 2 weeks, and we're now fully open in all of our centers.
Wow. Denise?
I also would like to thank you for asking me to participate. This is really absolutely a privilege, like Maria was saying. My practice is a small 2-surgeon practice. We are in central Pennsylvania in the United States, and we have 3 supporting optometrists in our practice. And we closed the same day, March 16th or 17th, and we were able to reopen May 2nd. And then I would say we are fully open at this point. Our roles have definitely changed. The way we see patients has changed. And our goal was to try to get back up to 100% of the throughput that we had prior to COVID. And we're just now reaching that target, but with very different processes in place.
And Denise, would you be in the same position as Maria, where currently you're on the downside of the COVID curve? You're on the curve's been flattened, yes, and things are under control for now.
Yes, and following that has been a challenge for me. I am the medical director of our practice, and we have an ambulatory surgery center with our practice combined in the same building, which I'm also in charge of, the managing partner. And following the processes and trying to brainstorm and how to get things working again is something we've always been looking at getting things to work better, but how to get them work again and get them work differently has definitely been a challenge over the past 2 months.
Absolutely. Shiraz?
Well, we've been back, we stopped working on the 23rd of March, although actually 25th of March, we were instructed to lock down on the 23rd, but we had a few transplants to do and we wanted to let those go. So we, with full precautions, did them. And we saw emergencies every week for the period of lockdown. So we were still operating somewhat, and we also have retina in our organization. So the retina guys are doing detachments and a couple of vitreous hemorrhages, ensuring there's no holes and tears that would need attention later. So we restarted on the 1st of June, but we started off very, very slowly for two reasons. One was to make sure we got bedded in terms of the new normal, in terms of enhanced cleaning, making sure our staff understood the process that was involved in terms of taking temperatures and getting questionnaires filled out. And it's actually quite good because it got patients also to be a little bit more vigilant about all this. It's amazing how quickly you get up to speed. So now we're moving into full schedule. There's no, so all the templates for our appointments are now going back to normal 3 weeks later. I'm getting a bit bored, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for patients to come through while the techs are seeing them. They're few and far between, and all I see is a working capital slowly going down. We need to do something to get that back up again, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you, right? We're not alone here.
Exactly. So what I want to ask you now is, did you, during COVID, did you make use of telemedicine? And if you did, are you now incorporating telemedicine into any part of your practice now that you've reopened again? Maria?
So telemedicine during the COVID shutdown. We had one, as Shiraz did, we had different ophthalmologists in certain centers based on location doing emergencies. So in our location in Annapolis, we had our retina surgeon or retina doc, she's medical, and she did all the emergencies plus the injection. Our oculoplastics doc very easily was able to switch to telemedicine. He did a lot of telemedicine during COVID. And then we had other doctors who did a little bit of it. 2 weeks before we opened, I started doing telemedicine for all of the cataract patients that were already scheduled to touch base with them, make sure nothing had changed. It was a wonderful way of touching base, making them feel like we're still connected. And then at the day of surgery, in the US, you're required to have an eye exam within 90 days of the surgery. So the telemedicine visit with an indirect the day of surgery served that purpose. So we didn't have to bring the patients in for another day. We're continuing to do it now. We have our optometrists rotating on a weekly basis so that they do telemedicine, and they're doing a lot of the triage. So the subconj hemorrhages, conjunctivitis, styes can be seen telemedicine. The patients don't have to come in. So we've revamped things quite a bit since that time. Oh, and our 1 week post-op second eyes are also being done telemedicine.
Very, very good. Denise, how about you? I think maybe Denise is frozen for the moment. We'll get back to Denise in a second. Shiraz?
Yeah, I tried telemedicine. I have to say it was more time organized trying to get patients to understand how to use it. They're elderly, and we found it easier to use our portal and get them to take photographs. So we gave them clear instructions on how to take photographs. That they would put on their computer screen and measure up and then measure their distance to take their vision. But that was it. I only did about 8 or 10 of them, and we essentially abandoned it. And we're not doing any more either. We find that it's much easier for our technicians to talk to the patients over the phone and relay images. And as I say, we have a portal. They upload the images to the portal, and where appropriate, they pass on to me, and I make a comment. We didn't have to see any emergencies ourselves as a result of telemedicine consultations. Usually in the triage process, we knew they had to be seen. We weren't going to waste any time going through telemedicine if we just brought them directly in, and sure enough, they were true emergencies. So I think there was a lot of time spent on telemedicine. It's quite interesting. I think it's great for oculoplastics, but I'm not sure it's good for refractive surgery. And our colleagues around the world are talking about doing consultations online in telemedicine. I don't know how they can do that without having diagnosis, knowing what exactly is going on with these patients. It's very hard to be convincing when you don't have the data in front of you. It's not. I find I can't be compelling. I'm more of a salesperson then, as opposed to an eye surgeon caring about their interests. So I'd rather stick to being an eye surgeon and avoid the contact. Also, man, telemedicine, it takes longer to see a patient, to talk to a patient, than it does seeing them in a chair after they've had everything done. So I didn't find it really efficient. It was kind of quirky and gimmicky, but I didn't have a great...
Our experience has been quite interesting. I've been very optimistic and have been keen to do it based on some colleagues, especially in South America. The Zaldivars have got a very good experience, but they do it in a very, very, very professional way, actually examining the eye with someone on the slit lamp. So we started doing these telemedicine consults mostly for emergencies. And interestingly, most of the emergencies were eyelid swellings, chalazion, that type of thing, as thigh, but also PVDs, posterior vitreous detachments with flashing lights. So we could have that conversation. People really liked it. And one thing I learned was you can actually build a rapport on telemedicine, which was really interesting. So some of these patients came in afterwards, and when they see you in the clinic, it's like they know you. So what we decided to do, because we're really trying to still keep, we want, when this whole thing is done and gone in, I don't know when, 12 months, 24 months, when COVID's no longer active, we want to look back and think we never played a role at all in spreading the virus. We're still taking it seriously and trying to socially distance and all those things. So what we're trying to do is make the consult for the patient in the clinic as short as possible. So they come in for their scans, they come in for a refraction, and they come in for the part of the examination we've got to do. But we've started a telemedicine part that the nurses or the techs do prior to the patient coming in, 3-4 days prior. They go through an online form where they go through very specifically what the patient's looking to do, what their hobbies are. They really create this rapport. And when the patient walks in, they know the tech and they meet him, and there's already this relationship. And what it's made is we're far more focused now. Patients know exactly what is on the line. Our techs would have told them if it's a high myope, look, it mightn't be LASIK that you're looking at, it mightn't be SMILE, it might be an ICL. So they've already thought about these things, and I think for us it's working quite well, and it's one of the things we're going to keep. I would imagine going forward we're going to keep it. And as I said offline before we started, is what we have found now is previously our conversion rate was probably around about the 55% mark, and currently if a patient's suitable, they plan going ahead. And I think it's because they've been through this funnel, they've been along this process, they understand it better. And as we said earlier too, because people are less inclined now to go shopping around, they sort of made up their mind and they want to just get on with it. All right, very good. So what I'd like to, because some of our colleagues listening are still in places where COVID is still quite rampant, what are the things you did to make your staff safe? What are the things you did within the practice to make patients feel safe? Maria.
From the beginning, when we closed, I would say the day after we closed, we started thinking about this, because it is a daunting task to do this. Keeping the patient safe and making them feel confident in what we're doing when they come in, but also the staff is your family and you want to protect them. If you get one of your docs or surgeons out, for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, you really suffer financially. So we've done most of the things that everybody else, the academy has said, ASCRS has had. All of the technicians, everyone is asked if they prefer to wear an N95 versus a surgical mask. So they're given the option, but we try to stress for the technicians and the doctors to wear N95s because we're so close. We use the shields. We developed our own little shields. Zeiss has one for our slit lamps. I look like I'm going to battle. I go in with my cap. I wear scrubs now, so instead of dressing nicely like Shiraz is doing right now, I have scrubs on. I wear goggles. I wear an N95. ENVO, ENVO is a nice N95 that you can breathe out of, and then you put a surgical mask on top, so I don't feel so claustrophobic. But I find we don't have any of the family members with the patients now, so it feels much more intimate because you're talking to the patients directly and you don't have that other person chiming in all the time. And I agree with you, Arthur, that patients come in and they're ready to go. Our conversions are much higher now than they were. And I think because the baby boomers are hitting that age of cataract surgery, the combination of that plus the 2 to 3 months that we have had been shut down has made it so our conversions are good, our patients are coming in We have changed our hours a little bit because we couldn't have as many docs in the clinic. I used to see about 85 people a day, 30 to 35 of them were one-day post-ops, and I can't do that anymore. So now we move to our optometrist doing the one-day post-ops. I'm in the clinic if they need me. So my schedule is much more reasonable. I'm happier. I can spend more time with the cataract consults. So for me, it's been a win-win, and the patients have been very happy, I think, with what we're doing. Shields also for the schedulers, you know, putting those little plastic shields in front of their desks so they feel comfortable.
Shiraz, how about you?
Well, I mean, I hate to be repetitive, but very similar on many fronts. We wear N95 masks. Patients are given a mask if they don't come in wearing one. I think the mask is now a fashion accessory. They come in all shapes and sizes and jeweled, and also it's amazing what people are doing. They're putting sequins on them. So they all come in. Most of them come in with masks. If they don't, we put one on. We don't permit relatives in unless they're elderly patients or if they require a translator. And we also schedule elderly patients earlier. Those that are vulnerable, we bring them in much earlier and get them done and dusted out the organization. We take their temperatures. We have a COVID checklist with a consent form, which makes very clear that they might get COVID. They can't really blame us. They're out and about, so it's a risk that they're taking, and we will not be responsible for that. So,
right, very good.
So we've done that. We also physically distance them within the clinic as well, and it's big enough for us to be able to do that quite safely. So yeah, it's similar measures. But I have to say, wearing goggles, I have a pair, but everything that we have is a breath shield, so I take them off because I can't see through them, especially with the mask on. So
Maria mentioned if a doctor goes down, you know, financially it's difficult. So because we're in a space that's mostly elective with cataract and refractive, I've got no doubts that all of us took a heavy financial loss. So how have you managed to get through this? And did you have to furlough staff? Did you have to lose any staff? Have you kept your staff? Shiraz, maybe you go first and then Maria can weigh in.
Yeah, so it's good. Our government gave us 80% up to £2,500, including national insurance and so on, for staff. So 80% of their salary for furloughed staff. So half our staff were furloughed. The ones that stayed on were like the skeleton crew. They were all the higher level managers. It's good because they learned how to run the organization from a first-hand point of view, so they could understand what everybody else is doing. And they worked pretty hard during that time. So we cut down our salary bill. It wasn't huge though. You know, that's a small amount. But we managed to get a capital break with the mortgages on our properties. We had to pay the interest but no capital, so that gave us a break for in terms of the equivalent of rental. We also managed to defer loans again for equipment and so on. And I talked to vendors, and I just basically said I wasn't paying them. Then I'll pay them once I got some cash in hand. They were a bit annoyed because they wanted to be paid for 30-day terms. So I managed to increase some of the terms with some of them. It was interesting. It was a mixed views. You know, there were some of them would call me out and say, "What can we do for you? You know, Rick, how can we help you?" And I said, "It's great that you guys are having this conversation." I'd spent an hour talking to them, and whoosh, they disappeared. They wouldn't call us back again. And said, "Well, you know, what happened, guys? You know, I've got this bill from you, and it's tell me, how about 60 days or 90 days?" So they did. They were very embarrassed, you know, tail between their legs. I think they generally wanted to help, but they were strapped by their own headquarters as well in terms of what they could and couldn't do. But I was holding them to it, and it's actually helped us a lot. So now that we're bringing some cash in, we can now let the trickle out and pay them. So yeah, it's a bit of working with each other to keep businesses going.
But the good news is it sounds like you lost no one. You've kept all your staff.
Yes, we have.
That's fantastic. How about you, Maria?
We did bring back almost all of our staff. There were some that we decided not to bring for a number of reasons. It wasn't just COVID. I was pleasantly surprised with how the government handled the situation in the US, giving small businesses less than 500 employees loans and then even grants, the PPPs. Unfortunately, we were not eligible because we were over 500 employees, but many of my ophthalmology friends who had slightly smaller practices were eligible. And then having CMS give us a 6% payment was such a wonderful surprise. I thought that our industry partners were great. Even American Express didn't make us pay our American Express bill for 2 months and gave us payments after. Almost all of our rentals and our mortgages we were able to defer. All in all, I think the whole community did pitch together, and I know everybody was suffering. The industry partners were as well, but they took the hit. So I'm pleased, and it builds loyalty with me.
Absolutely, Maria. So we had a very similar experience. I won't duplicate everything. One thing, we also defer loans, extend loans, do those kinds of things, and even tax bills. Our revenue commissioner here said, no need to pay tax now, we can defer that. So those are all very, very good things, and allow you to keep your team, which is crucial, obviously. But it does mean that once we get back at some point, we get in for a big surprise, we're in for a big hit. So with that in mind, seeing as though things are building up slowly, I think most of us aren't back at 100% yet. Luckily, demand seems to be out there, but it's going to take a while before we're back at 100%. Do you have any things in place, like potentially taking deposits on procedures, or having no-show, cancellation fees? Are you doing anything like that now that's different to what you were doing before, to try and maintain revenue and make sure people are coming in rather than not showing?
So we've always had those. Go ahead, Maria.
Go ahead, Sean.
No, go on.
So instead of having to pay the day of surgery, we do have them pay before, but that's just one more step to get them in and out of the clinics faster, so they spend less time in the clinics or surgery center. We did take out a large line of credit immediately when it happened, and instead of just paying that back so we didn't have to pay interest, we're a little worried about what's going to happen in the fall, so we decided to keep that and pay the interest on it. I am concerned about the fall, and I don't think the story is over.
So for us, we actually also took out an interest-free loan that the government gave us. It's not a huge amount, but it all helps, about £50,000 per company. Fortunately, I have 3 companies. I've only used one of the loans. So that helps a bit of the working capital. I think the key is to keep cash. And I'm really worried about a second shutdown. And in anticipation of that, I'm going to preserve as much cash as possible. Even if we're profitable, whatever, we're going to learn the lessons of being lean and mean, and we're going to keep it that way for a long while to come. So there won't be any major capital expenditures at all. I'm not buying a new laser. I'm not going to upgrade a lot of things until we're on even keel for a good period of time. In terms of patients getting deposits, we have a system in place, and we're not changing that. I don't sit there and change our terms and conditions to look in any way like we're exploiting the situation. Patients are ready to come in and be treated. Those that aren't, it doesn't matter what you say to them, they're going to come in. We had somebody cancel today who wants to be done in October because she's worried about coming in at this moment in time. And that's fair enough. I think we need to respect their wishes. But fortunately, there are enough patients out there who still want care, and there are ones who are desperate for care. They've been cancelled out of the health service. They can't see, they can't drive. So we're looking after we'll break even, and I'll probably be able to pay myself a little bit too. But I don't think we'll make the same sort of profits that we've had in the prior to COVID. Not for a while anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're right on that one. It's going to take a while. So I'm going to ask you what you're doing to try and protect the pipeline. I'll tell you what we're doing for the moment is there's quite a demand for laser refractive at the moment, thankfully. And there's also quite a demand for refractive lens exchange or custom lens replacement. That seems to be quite strong. And that helps us a whole lot because, first of all, these patients are self-payers. So there's no waiting for the insurer to pay. And the second thing is they're mostly that little bit younger and they're less fearful of COVID. So what we're doing is, and I discuss this with all our cataract patients that we see, we'd say, look, we had 10 weeks that we were booked ahead with cataract surgeries, and this would simply have been transferred to 3 months down the line. And we said, no. Some of the older patients, 75 plus, are very happy to wait another 3 months. So they're going to the back of that queue and bringing younger people in earlier. And that seems to be working well. And in a way, it's helping our cash flow as well. Maria, are you doing anything along those lines, or any things you're doing that are helping you manage the business part of the practice?
So I've been so pleased with the conversions, as you said, Arthur, patients are coming in, but I was a little concerned, the economy wasn't going to be doing as well, that patients would all be doing single focus manual, and better than any other year, my conversions to multifocals, I guess the patients aren't going on their cruises, so they've also reassessed what's important in life, and luckily have decided that their eyes are important and lifestyle is important. So we're just trying to keep the cash. We were going to do a renovation. Instead, we're just replacing the carpet. I want to see what happens. I would love to hear what anyone would think about in terms of, I now have this big reception area / waiting room, big dilating room that we're no longer using. So I want to see how we go over the next 6 months before deciding what we're going to do with that. Can we just add more lanes instead of having a large reception area?
That's your point. But it's interesting perspective. One of the it was a patient of mine, I think it was last week. Well, I asked the question, which I usually do. Why do you want to have surgery now? And his comment was, life is short. Mm-hmm. So this pandemic has put a new perspective on things for people. Everybody wants to now live for now. Yes. Because you never know. You could be one of the unfortunate ones that get hit hard by COVID. You want to live life, and when you've got the opportunity to have visual freedom, well, why not take it? So he was just dead keen to go ahead. This is not going to be on the back burner anymore. I want this now, and I want to enjoy my life. Because you never know what's going to come up next. That's an interesting perspective, and that might be another driver for improved conversions as well.
I think you're right. There's this element of seize the day and make the most of what's going on right now. And as Maria said, there's not an awful lot else to spend your disposable income on if you have. So Shiraz, are you doing anything to try and tailor the way finances come in? Because a lot of your cataract patients also insured, are they not?
We thankfully, many years ago, I learned to focus on self-pay. So Denise is back.
Yes, we'll speak in a second.
I think I'm on audio as well, guys. Been here. Sorry.
Oh, brilliant. Very good. Hi, welcome. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Great to have you back, Anita, and welcome, Ben. I'll just quickly introduce our fifth panelist. It's Ben Mahood, refractive cataract and laser vision correction surgeon in private practice in Auckland, New Zealand. So it is very, very early in the morning for him. So thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, that's all right. I've just got some video problems, I think, but we'll get them sorted. But sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
Ben, your timing's really good. We've got to the part that's becoming very interesting. So currently speaking about, now that we're back in the clinic again, is what are you doing to try and ensure that there's a pipeline? And are you doing anything to channel or manage patients that you have people who are self-payers first in line? Many of us treat patients who are insured, and they take a long time to pay. Shiraz has been very wise, and he sort of skipped that. So Denise, maybe you want to jump on over there. Is how are you sort of focusing your practice now to make sure, what we said when you were offline is that we're working at the moment, but so many of us have had loans that we deferred. We've had all sorts of payments that we put on the long finger. And so we're surviving for now, but one day reality is going to strike us and they're going to come back looking for their money. So how do we ensure there's a cash flow going forward?
One of the things that we have been very diligent about is having a plan for when COVID strikes us, so that we can continue to service patients, because the last thing we want to see is another shutdown and another closure where we lose our revenue stream, and we can't provide the care to patients that they need. And so having those plans in place, making sure that the surgery center doesn't run out of PPE, that it has channels that are open, that we have systems in place. If we have an employee that gets COVID, we know exactly what we're going to do so it doesn't shut us down. That's pretty much the way that we have tried to protect ourselves from that. Barring, the government coming in and telling us again that we can't perform elective procedures or routine examinations, I think that we should be able to sustain our practice.
Ben, would you mind giving us a recap of where you are now, when you opened, and then answer the same question, please?
Yeah, thanks, Arthur. So we're living in the future in New Zealand, not just that it's Saturday morning, but we seem to have done pretty well with eradication of the virus as well. So we've got a mentality here that our aim is to eradicate the virus from the country and then think later, how are we going to cope? So we're at a stage where we're back to functioning at what we call level 1, which means it's sort of minimum restraints on what we do. So we initially had a lockdown period for a solid month. We had nothing. We weren't doing anything at all except emergencies. So we got through that. The business, everyone decided to take a pay cut across the board so that we could retain staff. And then we've gradually moved through level 3, which meant restrictions over a few weeks. And we were kind of left with very vague guidelines about when it would be safe to return to refractive surgery and elective cataract. So as a group of ophthalmologists across the country, we got together and we decided that if we all think it's safe, then really as a group, we can decide that we are safe to carry on. So at this stage, now that we're at the minimum sort of worries in the country about community spread, we've got back in the last month, we've got back to practically 100% back to normal elective cataract surgery and refractive surgery, so laser surgery. So it's been, I think everyone was expecting a little bit of a bump. Everyone would be sitting around waiting for their services and getting back into it, but it's been quite overwhelming. So it's been happy to see that there's been a demand. A lot of people sitting around thinking, I want to get rid of my glasses. I'm sick of sitting there, looking at the wall for a month without being able to see. But whether that continues is tricky. And so the other speakers have said, our biggest worry would be returning back up the levels. And I think keeping people happy and keeping the paying customers happy to flow through has mainly been about communication about the safety of coming in and communicating that to our referrers, so mainly optometrists and GPs, but also the community, putting out video clips on Facebook, using social media to let the community know about our stepped up PPE wear, our hand washing, just letting people know that it's safe to return to see us. We're still not seeing a lot of the Chinese community. We've noticed that those numbers have dropped significantly, and we're going to have to do something about that because that's a big part of my practice. We have a large Chinese community in New Zealand. But in general, it's about, I think that getting those patients back again that were coming electively seems to be about communication and letting people know that it's safe to return.
All right, fantastic, thank you. So I think what I've heard from all of us, myself included, is we're quite pleasantly surprised by the bounce back in vision correction. So laser vision correction and people looking for presbyopia correction. So this is a really good time to maybe we've got some sort of momentum again. And isn't this a good time to really build refractive again? And what are the things we can do to put refractive back on the forefront now and to keep on going? So one of the things I'm thinking about is, because it's always a topic that Shiraz and I are involved with, is sometimes people would advertise in a way that denigrates another product or another procedure or another colleague. So the kinds of things we're thinking along the lines of, what are the things we can do to promote refractive surgery and to build on this momentum? Any ideas, Maria?
I would love it if industry partners would do some advertising direct to our patients. you know, so that if we can get J&J and Alcon out there advertising to our patients directly, just sending the message that, you know, LASIK is a great thing to do, so your eyes aren't fogging up with your glasses aren't fogging up with your masks, would be wonderful. And I would love to see that.
I think
Social
I'll just
media.
mention something for a second that Shiraz and I have both been involved with, is sometimes when industry do that directly, they do the very things we don't want to happen. They start saying how their technology is better than someone else's, and that confuses the market. So what we really want to do is we want the benefits of refractive surgery to become more obvious to people, and for people to come in and say, I don't know that you're a LASIK surgeon or a SMILE surgeon or an ICL surgeon. All I know is you correct people's vision, and you're the expert, I'm the consumer or the patient, and I'd like you to guide me in the right direction. So creating awareness maybe, but I think it's quite tricky when you ask industry to specifically advertise. You know, they want to talk about what they do well, specifically. Shiraz?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you entirely, Arthur. I think that, I also agree with Maria in that they should allocate some funding towards the betterment of refractive surgery practices and in turn themselves. But how they do it is a big question. What I have to say though, you know me, Arthur, I'm an eternal optimist. You know, we have a bounce back right now. So forget about the industry for the moment. How about us? We've got a bounce back right now. And you know, the more we do, the more we get, right? The more we do, the more conversations taking place about refractive surgery and refractive lens exchange and so on. Well, let's use that. So you know, the patients that go out there that have great outcomes, that talk about why they came in now, straight after COVID, well, I would milk that if I were the audience, you know, and we plan to do that ourselves. So every single patient that comes in at this time, we're going after in terms of reviews. And some of them, you know, really had to have something done. They had cataracts, but that's also good. They came in, they were bold, they got bilateral surgery, and there was a fantastic experience. That, I believe, will help us. If we just sit there and rest on our laurels while we get this bounce back, we'll just see the spiral go the other way again. So make use of it.
That's such a good point. Denise, before I ask you the same thing, Shiraz, you mentioned bilateral surgery. Is that something you're doing now new, thanks to COVID, or is that something you were doing anyway before COVID? Bilateral IOLs.
You're asking me? We've been doing it for some time for the middle of the road patients. So I wouldn't do torics, I wouldn't do the whole bunch I wouldn't do. But now I've spread that out much wider. Patients actually want it, and they like it, and they get a great experience. So I don't see any reason not to do it. If they got a really hard lens, or hard lenses both eyes, I might just do one eye and say, come back next week, or come back in 2 days, and we'll do the other one. But yeah, so I'm still picking and choosing, but I'm definitely doing a lot more bilateral than I did in the past.
Yeah, I've been on a number of webinars that I've attended, and there's no question there's a much higher acceptance now amongst all of our colleagues for bilateral same-day surgery. Denise, what are your thoughts?
Well, as far as the refractive for the laser vision correction, whatever type of laser vision correction we're doing, I think the way that we're looking at this post-COVID environment is an opportunity to differentiate ourselves from competitors. So what is it that we're doing better now that our competitors are lacking on? And we have actually used telehealth to really step up our game, because the patients that are wanting to have the laser vision correction, the younger patients, you know, their work schedules actually might be quite erratic because they're having shift work. They might have time in the middle of the day, or they might have time at the end of the day. So we are bringing them in, and we're having the optometrist do some of the exam, we're having some of the testing, but we're also videotaping their slit lamp exam, and so that the surgeon can review all of that and have a telehealth visit with them, maybe at 7 o'clock in the evening after dinner when they're home with their family, and go over the laser vision correction options. And so that higher level of service that's catering to the patient is something that they're going to, like Shiraz was saying, brag about, the experience because they got something different, something that they didn't expect, and we facilitated it. We made it easier for them. We make it so that their prescriptions get delivered to their house if they need them, and whatnot. So it's an opportunity to look for ways, in my opinion, to differentiate yourself. What can you do for them because of all these inconveniences in our lives now, personally, because of COVID, the things that we can no longer do, the things that we no longer want to do because we don't want to put ourselves at risk. Change the mindset of the refractive patient and potentially changes their need or their desire for different types of services. So I think by looking at that, that's a bit where our strategy is going, and it's been working quite well. We've seen our numbers of LASIK, SMILE, PRK, they're all up this year compared to the same time last year.
Wow, that's brilliant. Ben, you're also in a position where you said you're stronger now than you were a year ago, and very surprised by that. So what are your thoughts on how do we keep this momentum going?
Yeah, well, I'm like Shiraz. I'm an eternal optimist as well, and so this is a very optimistic view. But I would really like to see that these products and services that we class as being premium or luxury, things like presbyopia solutions with refractive lens exchange, just standard LASIK for a low myope, become commonplace. That's a treatment option. That's just general treatment of these errors is just part of life. And if ultimately in New Zealand, I think the ultimate solution will be for insurance providers to come on board and accept that putting in a premium, or I don't even like the term premium, but a presbyopia correcting IOL is a good financial decision, that we can push that. And I think pushing that the laser options are not, they're not out of the, this is not a strange, crazy thing to be getting done. This is a very safe, good treatment for the rest of your life. And I would like to be pushing amongst the patients and word of mouth that the people that are coming in, they're not being brave, they're not being gung-ho. This isn't something amazing they're doing. That this should be just as standard as going and getting glasses. This should be just as standard as getting your contact lenses, and making sure that when they're talking to their friends, and that when I'm doing things on social media, when I'm talking about this, that it's very safe, standard, and should be considered just a normal choice. You should get rid of that handicap from your life. So that would be my really positive, optimistic point of view.
I must say I like it an awful lot, and I know Shiraz agrees with you because he does 100% premium presbyopic correcting lenses. So let me quickly go back to how we see the economy. So none of us really predicted what was going to happen with COVID, although Shiraz, you wrote a very good editorial some time ago that sort of hinted this might become a headache, but none of us really saw it coming. So how do we see it now versus the 2008 crash? And how do we see ourselves in the latter part of this year and perhaps next year, specifically in the space of cataract and refractive? Maria, so I think be optimistic too, but then also just put in what you think the other scenario could look like.
So it's interesting. I know that Denise is also an eternal optimist, as am I. So they are getting a skewed view with all of us being that way. As you know, we have a pretty big election coming in the fall, and things can change drastically. There's a lot of uncertainty for us. If the Democrats get in, what will Trump do between November and January? How are things going to change? The economy has been boosted up by the federal government with wonderful low interest rates, all of the supplements they're giving for unemployment. If that changes, it certainly is going to change the environment for patients. Their economics is not going to be as good. And so we have to look at that and be prepared that that may happen. I want to hope that everyone sees their eyes as the best lifestyle decision and investment going forward. At the same time, we have to be realistic of the less than optimistic alternative.
So I'll put you on the spot for one question: is how do you see this time 2021 compared to now with this little bit of uptake? Do you think it's gonna be the same, stronger, or what are you predicting?
By 2021, I agree with you. You had mentioned earlier, you know, is it going to be 12 months, 24 months? We're going to be living with this for a long time. And as someone so rightly said, in the past, there was an elderly gentleman, and you know, he said when polio was here, my mom wouldn't allow me to go out and see more than 2 or 3 friends at a time. There have been people that have lived through things like this in the past, but you do have to continue to live. I believe by 2021, we are going to be living a much more normal but different life. It's just, as everyone says, you know, it's cliche, but it is the new normal. So I see 2021 being more normal. We'll be back into it. If we have another close down, I don't think it's going to be long. I don't believe the United States has the stomach for another shutdown, honestly, but that's my personal opinion. It seems that the United States seems more willing to take the risk of the deaths being a little higher, but they don't want the economy to shut down. So by 2021, I think we'll be more.
May I interject here? I mean, I think that human beings are amazing in terms of resilience. In the last 2 centuries, there have been major wars. The GDP has shrunk considerably with following wars and the pandemic in 1918 as well. And there are quite a lot of parallels there. And what's quite interesting is how there's a level of energy that it gets people to fight back with a sense of renewal. And that renewal helps change take place for the better. I hope that we're not stymied by regulation and some of the other bureaucratic things that they may not have had in times gone by, because that really does scupper things. But overall, I think we find a way around all the obstacles, and we move forward. But there's no question, with 25% loss of GDP, that's a big dent. There are going to be a lot of unfortunate people out there who are going to be out of a job. And you know what? We're all living in one society, one community. We need to start working more together and helping each other out. And we may have to take a hit, but that's okay, as long as we avoid civil unrest and see suffering in the streets and all over the world. I think we can all do our part to make sure things are better for everybody else. It's not just about how much money we put in our pockets, because there's no point having it if you're locked down indoors, worried about going outside because crime levels are high, or you might get mugged or whatever. I think we're all in this together. We all need to work together as well. So I'm hopeful that we will have this renewed vigor and we'll bounce back just from that alone.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Shiraz. I mean, you know, ophthalmologists have always looked forward to the year 2020 for all the obvious reasons, and it's sort of been a damn squib the first 6 months. But I think you're 100% right. We're seeing differently, and that's already a very good link to 2020. We're seeing differently. The whole Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd incident, we are seeing the world differently. And I think we will look back at 2020 one day and say, you know what, that was the year we started seeing differently. We started seeing things for what they are. I see my own team. I've always had an amazing team, and they've always been pretty independent, and they could work well. They've never worked the way they are now. Everyone's taken on things. So you're right. I think there's a very strong renewed energy, bigger, people have goals in mind. And I'm very positive too. Denise, what do you think? So Shiraz, you can tell us what you think for 2021. Are we in a stronger place or a weaker place than we are right now?
I think that everybody's predicting a weaker place. I think they'll be weaker in many areas. In terms of what we do, I think we'll be much, much stronger, because there's a pent-up need now for many reasons. Because, you know, just a stoppage alone has been a problem. I think shutdowns are going to be inevitable, or partial shutdowns are going to be inevitable. So that'll increase the pent-up need. So we're going to be okay. I just worry about other areas in society, and they're going to affect us indirectly, and we just have to be concerned about that. But for what we do, I think we're going to be okay.
Denise, how do you?
I'm Maria's right. I am an optimist, but I do feel that 2021 for healthcare in general, and especially for ophthalmology and for refractive services, is going to be strong. And the reason is because this is a healthcare crisis. And even things like Black Lives Matter and all of the racial issues that the world is dealing with, all of these things are related to our well-being. You know, for now in time, our focus has shifted to personal well-being. And I don't think that that was always the case. And so what we're going to see are the things that help us live better lives, such as not, you know, having our glasses fog up or being able to, you know, to see in the morning. It may sound like a trivial thing. It may have sounded like a trivial thing in the past. To us that do it for a living, it's definitely not trivial. But these things that support and help our well-being are the things that are going to be important going forward. So that's why I think that ophthalmology in general is going to be stronger, because the things that we do for patients and the things in healthcare that we do for patients are going to have greater value going forward than they did prior to COVID.
Wow, brilliant. So Ben, I'm sorry to put you on the spot now. If you had such good responses, can you add anything to that?
Just from the point of view of a country that, you know, does team up together well, you know, we talk a lot about being a team of 5 million because we're a small underdog country that likes that tag. You'll know from sport, and we're doing well, and we're getting through this. But my only concern is going forward that we've had a lot of boosts, and we've had things like 6-month mortgage holidays. We've had a lot of financial support from the government. And we've sort of shifted all our worries into the future. So I do worry that 2021 will see a little bit of that coming home to roost and perhaps a little bit of a downturn. And for us, border control and the ability for people to travel is going to be a big impact. So we rely a lot on overseas travel, imports and exports. And I do think that once we get through this period of support, there will be a downturn that will affect the whole economy, and it will affect ophthalmology. But that team mentality that you talk about with your team, you know, where I worked, people taking a pay cut together, looking after each other, I really see that that's been a big positive from this, and that will be what gets us through 2021, I think.
Excellent. We don't have a lot of time left, and I still have quite a few questions. So I'm going to ask a question now that's got 2 parts. If you try and answer both, the first one would be have you participated and attended seminars like this that are online, and did they mean much to you? And what do you think, what role are they going to play in the future? And the second thing would be are there any things you've learned during the pandemic that you're going to keep in your practice going forward, Maria?
One of the things I've enjoyed most is the virtual community of docs across the world with many of these seminars. I thought Ascaris did an outstanding job in their virtual meeting. I was so pleasantly surprised about the content and the innovations. And again, our industry partners did a wonderful job supporting us for that. So I look forward to doing that soon. I know, you know, AIO is coming up, and I hear some people are saying they are going, others are saying they're not. So I hope that there is a virtual component to that for those that don't feel comfortable going forward. You know, as I said, 10 weeks, I guess we were off. It gave a lot of thinking, a lot of renewed energy about how can we do it differently. A lot of things that we're doing now, I believe, were better than what we were doing before. We're rethinking every part of the practice to try to make the experience better for our patients. We want them to be safe. We want our staff to be safe. We want us to be safe. So I look forward to the challenge. It's been fun in some ways, and again, it's been horrible in others, but it certainly has brought us all together. So. Absolutely.
Shiraz?
Well, I've enjoyed some of the webinars out there. I have to say that, gosh, it's hard to keep the time, and we find that a lot of the presentations go on for a long, long time. So I think the ASRS is quite good in having these pre-recorded ones, although there was the loss of interaction, which really bothered me. And there was a few of the same talking heads on both days that drove me crazy because there was a lot of repetition. And I attend very carefully. And we've been back at work for the last 3 weeks. I don't have the luxury of time anymore. I'm usually pretty tired by the time I get home, and the last thing I want to do is hear more ophthalmology. I don't mind discussions like this, but when it comes to sitting and watching videos and hearing talks, I participate, I present, I watch some, but I have to say I do pick and choose very well. But what I think is really great, though, is more than any other meeting, you've got people really interacting with each other far more than they would normally. You've got people from all over the world tuning in and hearing what everybody has to say. And I think that's fantastic. That's more of this renewal, this rebirth of our global community, ophthalmically and otherwise. So I've got a really new sense of enthusiasm about where we're going in the future. As for the wisdom of going to meetings, this is good to the American Academy, but I got to say, it is really worrying. I don't think the United States is doing a very good job of COVID, and I'm not sure I want to travel there where we don't really know what's taking place. I wonder if Europe will permit people to come back and not be quarantined when they come back from the United States. So there may be some issues, and I think the American Academy would be wise to consider a virtual meeting just in case. I'm sure they are, but I reckon it'll probably go virtual completely as opposed to having any attendance. I don't think too many international people will attend. Maybe in 2021 we'll be back to normal again, but I don't think 2020 is going to be a time for international gatherings. That's my own personal opinion.
Great, thanks. So Denise, what are you going to carry through into post-COVID in your practice? What have you really done that you like? And what about meetings? Have you enjoyed online meetings, and do you see them playing a role in the future once we're back to sort of normal?
The online meetings for me have been a lifeline, because I will echo a little bit of Shiraz's comment as the only COVID management that I have a fair amount of confidence in is the one that's occurring in my local community of York, Pennsylvania. So I'm really not confident that anyone in the world is doing a good job in containing things, but I do know what's going on locally, and I'm pretty confident of that. So my motivation to travel for meetings is very, very low. The one thing that I have absolutely appreciated about these webinar meetings is hearing what other people are doing, because as someone who has a relatively small, 2-surgeon practice, we have an ambulatory surgery center. We have big things to manage, even though we're kind of small. And so hearing how people are dealing with COVID, people sharing their processes and how we put plexiglass up in the office, and we got it in there before there was a shortage in plexiglass. We were on it because I was doing webinars, and we were sharing all of this stuff between the different, ophthalmologists. We had our telehealth in there. We had the hybrid visits going, we were so on point in getting everything up and running. And it wasn't because of me, it was because of my colleagues and their sharing of that information. And so that's really where this was important for me. So I can see that I still want to do it. It's kind of getting a little old though, webinar after webinar, you want to see people in person and whatnot. I think if I am going to attend a meeting, the first one that I'm interested in attending is the Caribbean Eye meeting. I want to go somewhere nice. I want to go somewhere where it's pretty outside, where I'm going to get to enjoy myself, a bit. Even if I can't go to a bar or restaurant, at least I can sit on a beach chair, in my spare time. So.
Very good. So Ben, you live a long way from where we are, so travel's always been quite more challenging than it is for me. Do you see online webinars continuing and in fact playing a bigger role for someone who lives far away from where the meetings are held sometimes, the big international meetings?
Yeah, so when you're in New Zealand, everything is 12-hour flight away, so you've got to pick and choose. But I don't want to sound rude, but I got quite sick of webinars, to be honest. You'd open up your email and you'd see 3 webinars today, and you did start to pick and choose. And sometimes I'd feel almost a little embarrassed giving a webinar because I'd think, oh, everyone must be sick of seeing my face. But I think that one thing I took out of it was I love the interaction. So it changed my presentation style. I went from relying on PowerPoint slides to realizing how little you get from a small PowerPoint slide on a screen, and more talking, more interaction. I love that. I really love the ability to hear a few people, shooting the breeze and talking about what they really do. So that's what I would take out of it. And if you're thinking about a good meeting to go to that physical, it looks like the OSCRIS meeting, so the Australian Cataract and Refractive meeting in Noosa, looks like it's still going ahead in November. So I'll be hopefully looking forward to that one if anyone feels like a long trip or can not be quarantined. But other than that, I don't see myself attending any physical meetings this year or next year, probably.
All right, listen, guys, one of the reasons I like webinars, especially these that are organized by partners who are professional, is that they tend to stay on time, and we're on the hour. We've done our hour. Shiraz, you and I have been in a couple of webinars where they, held by colleagues, and they're meant to be an hour and they're going for 3.5 hours. It's just everyone speaks for as long as they like. So it's really nice to have it done professionally like this. What we did agree to do is for the next 15 minutes, maybe, I know some can't make the full time, but we're going to answer some questions. If there are questions, Alexandra?
Yes, there have been questions coming throughout the hour. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much to all our panelists for that extremely interesting discussion. I have a little ready-made marketing slogan for all of you for next year. 2021, see things differently, based on what Arthur said. And let's go to the questions. So the first one was from a young ophthalmologist, clearly at the start of their career. He or she is asking whether you would recommend going into refractive surgery.
I'll go last. I've got too much to say about that topic. So, Shiraz.
But look, I mean, everything. If you deal with the anterior segment, everything you do is refractive surgery. I don't do regular cataract surgery. I do refractive cataract surgery. So yes, even a 94-year-old optometrist will get a multifocal lens if they're suitable for it. I want to give them the best possible vision after surgery. When I do with corneal transplants, I want to give them the best refractive outcome I can give them. So I work accordingly. I do the intellectual exercise to figure out what's best for them. So I think we're all doing refractive surgery anyway. The question is, are we doing refractive surgery plus, where we include laser vision correction and some of the other things? Well, I would encourage everybody to do it because that's the way the future is going. This is going to become commonplace, and it's going to be what people want. It's a bit like saying in the past, should I do implants? When they were doing cataracts, should we do IOLs? I'm sure that question was posed, right? Is it kind of risky procedure? Should we do it? Well, we're all doing it now. So just wind forward, we're all going to be doing refractive surgery. So yes, I'd encourage everybody to do refractive surgery.
I agree.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I would add that cataract refractive surgery is the most rewarding thing you can ever do in your life. I feel so fortunate to have the ability to do it. The outcomes are mostly positive, and what you're doing for your patients is wonderful. As a young ophthalmologist, certainly you should be trying and doing everything you can possibly do. Keep learning. Even at my age, I'm still learning. I want to continue to learn until the day I retire. But get into refractive surgery. It's an exciting field that's coming up.
I agree. I would say get in, learn about refractive surgery, get some experience in it, and see if you're passionate about it. When you are looking to subspecialize in ophthalmology, all of the subspecialties are going to have work going forward. It's not like one is going to, have nothing to do because of something changing. Refractive surgery is going to be busy going forward. So look at glaucoma, look at retina, look at refractive, and do what you're passionate about. What Maria just said, that she loves it, she's so privileged to be in it. That's how you want to feel about what you go into. And that's the way I feel about refractive surgery. And you have to be able to do more than one thing, just like Shiraz said. If all you have in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you have to be able to put in an IOL, you have to be able to work on the cornea, you have to be able to manipulate all these different things to get that awesome refractive outcome. And you also have to be one that wants to listen to patients, because you have to know what they want in order to give them what they want. So definitely go into it, but make sure you're passionate about it.
Great advice. I'm not going to take up time because I can go on for a day about why you should do it. Be passionate about it, the most rewarding career. But someone who's just recently dedicated his life to refractive surgery is Ben. So Ben, I'd love to hear what you're thinking. How would you respond to that question?
Oh, 100%. So I love Shiraz's answer. That's absolutely perfect. And I won't add much to it, but I would say, I've told you this before, Arthur, that when I was thinking what I want to do, I was passionate about doing refractive surgery, and people looked down upon it. It was almost as though you were taking the easy route out, or you were being the cosmetic surgeon amongst people saving lives. It was a bit embarrassing almost. And people would say, oh, you're not meant to say that. You're not meant to say you want to be a refractive surgeon. You claim that you're going to be a corneal surgeon. You do a little bit of refractive. But no, I just back yourself, and as Maria said, you will not find a more rewarding specialty. It's not just cosmetic. It's amazing what you can do, and it's just growing, and it's the most exciting part of ophthalmology. So absolutely 100% go for it. Don't worry about the current economy and the current pandemic situation. Things will get better, and this will always be needed.
Thank you, Ben. Alexandra, I trust we've answered that one.
Yes, that's great. Thank you very much. And a question from clearly an optimist. A member of the audience from the UK is asking, is there anything that you will be investing in order to power your practice recovery? And a little addition from me, do you feel that the industry has been helpful in getting your practice through this difficult period?
Sounds like somebody from the industry asking those questions. I will defer.
I'll start. I think industry have been helpful. They've been open with payment terms. They've been, as Shiraz says, they're asking us a lot of questions how they can help. When it actually comes to helping, sometimes their hands are tied. I think what's important to realize is people tend to say this all the time. We're in the same boat. I've seen it slightly differently. I think we're in the same storm, but we happen to be in different boats. And some boats are floating better than others, but we're in the same storm and we have to address the same issues. And as much as we'd like help on another, sometimes they're not in a position to do so. But I think the intent for everyone is the same. We want to get through it with minimal losses. We want everyone to survive and to flourish on the far side. What has your experience been in the US?
It's in all our interests, in the industry's interest and our interests, for us all to survive. And I think they're beginning to get the picture, because if we don't survive, they've got no outlets for their wares and technologies that they might want us to invest in. So it's, yeah, we share the pain.
I love that analogy, Arthur. That was wonderful.
Maria and Denise, maybe Maria first. What is your perspective from based in the US?
In terms of investment, I agree with the others that I'm going to be conservative in spending money this year. I'm holding on to as much as possible because of the uncertainty. At the same time, I'm looking at, I'm actually right now demoing video, and I know that Denise, you already picked one up to see if it's really possible to do telemedicine remotely for cataract evaluations. But one of the things that I was surprised about is when I got into the clinic without that patient family member in the room, I'm in and out so much faster. It's a very intimate conversation. I'm in and out faster. And so for me to just examine the patient, see the patient, tell them what they would be happy with having is a quick thing now, as opposed to, as someone else had mentioned earlier, I think Shiraz, you had said, telemedicine takes longer than your visit in the clinic. So I think although I'm looking at the video, I'm probably going to discount that and not spend a lot of money. I'm sorry, industry partners, that's not what I'm going to be doing this year.
So we did purchase a video slit lamp camera, actually almost simultaneously when we opened, having not the cash flow that I generally like to see when we do something like that. And the main reason we did that is that with 5 physicians that can see patients, 3 optometrists, 2 ophthalmologists, and in order to maintain our throughput, I felt we needed that camera in order to videotape some examinations so that conversations could occur outside the office and not inside the office. And that has helped us. At first, like Maria said, I was surprised how short many of the exams many of the encounters were, because of having to keep the conversation short with COVID, and many patients didn't feel the need to have conversations afterwards, telemedicine. So we're doing less telemed than I anticipated. And fortunately, we only had to buy 1 camera instead of multiple. But if I'm looking at anything to invest in the office, it's something that's going to help me with my throughput. Not really any major equipment right now. We just made an investment last year in upgrading our OCT. So when I look at other technologies like the light adjusted lens, we were looking at that. I'm being pretty conservative right now. We have not been back long enough and have had our revenues in enough for me to make a decision about CapEx. You know, my CapEx expenditures are really not expanding at this point.
Ben, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I'd really just back up those same statements that we're just keeping alive. It's kind of survival mode at the moment, and investment is going to be pretty minimal in terms of any technology. In terms of help from industry, the most helpful thing has been being lenient on things like clinical trial dates and flexibility. But I think, like Shiraz said, and maybe I missed it, but everyone's asking what they can do, but it's really difficult to know. It's difficult to know how people can help, to be honest. So it's just getting by at the moment.
That's great, thank you. And unfortunately, our time is running out, so I would like to thank all our speakers for their insights and our audience for their questions and participation. Thanks again to our main sponsor, Alpen, and supporting sponsors, Zeiss and Zima. And I would like to let you know that this webinar will be also available on demand within the next few days if you wish to revisit any of the topics we covered today. And from everyone at the Ophthalmologist, thank you very much and stay safe, everyone.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weekend.
Bye.